Just a real quick poll. Who out there is done with lockdown? Who out there would like lockdown to end and governments return to their proper role? Well, there is one state left in the Union where that hasn't changed, ever, throughout this entire event the last year. Perhaps the final state in North America that understands how government is supposed to work. One thing we value in Florida is our peace, and we will not allow anyone or anything or any movement to disturb that. Let that be a caution in the next week to anyone who might attempt that. Now, in today's video, I'm going to share something with you that's probably going to blow your mind. It's going to give you one of those moments where you have to sit back and maybe re-listen to the video again. I'm going to give you the links that back it up, and you can read it for yourself. In Florida, we have differences. We don't focus on them. We focus on the things we have in common. Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal. We work together to keep the peace. And the peace will not be disturbed, no matter what. No matter what you hear in the mainstream media, no matter what you hear from Washington, D.C., the peace of Florida will be kept by the people of Florida, one way or the other. I'm sure many of you don't know who this man is. I have talked about Governor Ron DeSantis at length. This is the mayor of Tallahassee, the capital of Florida. Now, he's a Democrat. I'm sure a lot of you, because you're stuck in this left-right paradigm, would think, oh man, this guy must really hate Ron DeSantis. Not really. Not really. We focus on what we have in common. Some might be scratching their heads wondering, how can such a good conservative state have its capital be run by a Democrat? We've been taught that all Democrats and all liberals are one thing and all conservatives and Republicans are another. Well, I think Mitch McConnell has probably dispelled that notion recently, hasn't he? Let me give you a little bit of background about John Dailey and why he is such a good mayor. Bachelor's degree, master's degree from Florida State. Also studied in London. Served as an aide to Roger Casale from the Labour Party in Wimbledon. But when he came back to Tallahassee 2005, he founded JDA Strategies, a research and development consulting firm focused on local governance. You see, that's a very conservative value. That's a very libertarian value. That all good government starts at the lowest level. The best government is at the lowest level. Bad government comes from the top down. There's no way that can be done well. We're too large a nation. We're too diverse. Even Florida is too large of a state and too diverse to be run from the top down, and Governor DeSantis knows this. That's why places like Miami, Orlando, Tampa, Tallahassee, Jacksonville, they have Democrat and liberal government. Now, does Ron DeSantis agree with all of those men? No, absolutely not. But he does agree with the concept, just like these men do, that the best government is local government. In fact, here's proof of this. Tallahassee Democrat. This is a newspaper. Mayor launching All Human Rights Are Local pilot program. 9 December 2020. Now, based on brainwashing, you would think, wait a minute, don't Democrats want the federal government to tell everything to the localities about what they're supposed to do? Well, there are some. There's a progressive wing of their party that wants that, but the real successful Democrats don't. They understand that all human rights are local now. As if that wasn't strange enough, there was something in this article that caught my eye. This article is from 9 December 2020, a little over a month ago, talking about 10 December and the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, 73 years ago, 72, something like that. So I pulled this up just to see what it said. And guys, believe it or not, the UN Covenant on Civil and Political Rights could save you from Washington, D.C. I'm going to say that again. This International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, adopted by the United States at the UN, could actually force Washington, D.C. to stop the lockdown and stop the states from enforcing lockdowns. Just like we never did here in Florida. Now I'm going to read the preamble, and and all I have to read is Part 1, Article 1. That's it. Open and shut case. Here we go. Preamble. The states parties to the present covenant, considering that, in accordance with the principles proclaimed in the Charter of the United Nations, recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world, recognizing that these rights derive from the inherent dignity of the human person, recognizing that, in accordance with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the ideal of free human beings enjoying civil and political freedom and freedom from fear and want can only be achieved if conditions are created whereby everyone may enjoy his civil and political rights as well as his economic, focus on that, social and cultural rights. Considering the obligation of states under the Charter of the United Nations to promote universal respect for and observance of human rights and freedoms, realizing that the individual having duties to other individuals and to the community to which he belongs is under a responsibility to strive for the promotion and observance of the rights recognized in the present covenant, now agree upon the following articles. This is the real important part. All peoples have the right of self-determination. By virtue of that right, they freely determine their political status and freely pursue their economic, social, and cultural development. All peoples may, for their own ends, pay attention to that. All peoples may, for their own ends, meaning their own selfish wants, needs, desires, freely dispose of their natural wealth and resources without prejudice to any obligations arising out of international economic cooperation. What that means is that your right to have your business and your right to go buy things and go be part of an economy supersedes any other consideration. Based on the principle of mutual benefit and international law, in no case, capitals, asterisk, pay attention, the most important sentence of the video right now, here it goes. In no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. In no case may a people be deprived of its own means of subsistence. Open and shut, slam dunk case, game over. Jordan fades back for 3. Game winner. Over and done. International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights. I'll give you this link. All that would have to be done is have this be brought before an international court, and it's over. Washington, D.C. would be found to be in violation of this covenant. The states parties to the present covenant, including those having responsibility for the administration of non-self-governing trust territories, blah, 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 shall promote the realization of the right of self-determination and shall respect that right in conformity with the provisions of the Charter. Now, who does this cover? Each state party to the present covenant undertakes to respect and to ensure to all individual within its territory and subject to its jurisdiction the rights recognized in the present covenant without distinction of, ready for this? Race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion. That's right. It protects conspiracy theorists. Political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. And on top of that, each state party to the present covenant undertakes to ensure that any person whose rights or freedoms as herein recognized are violated shall have an effective remedy, notwithstanding that the violation has been committed by persons acting in official capacity. Meaning that if you have suffered under lockdown, having your rights taken away, this covenant gives you redress in international courts. It gives you redress against Washington, D.C. in international courts. Now does local governance make sense? Now does local governance make sense? This is why I talk about Florida a lot. See, nobody would know about this. Nobody would know about this if it wasn't for the Democrat liberal mayor of Tallahassee. This is what Washington, D.C. doesn't want you to know. That you have redress. And you have a right to redress for all of the damage done by Washington, D.C. during lockdown because it violated your rights and they are a signatory to it. I'm sure a lot of conservatives out there are probably like, wait a minute, are you telling me right now that the UN can protect me from Washington, D.C.? Yep. They absolutely can. And they should. And if anything, any dictate would come down from Washington, D.C. about you have to close this business or you have to wear this little piece of paper over your face, Florida is just going to point to that and go, the minute you try that, we're going to the UN for redress. Period. This is what happens when you work together. This is what happens when you don't demonize your neighbors. You would be amazed at what can be achieved. And Florida is literally the shining example now across the whole country of working together, not demonizing each other, keeping the peace, and realizing freedom. True freedom. If I wanted to right now, I could go down to any one of a number of local establishments, have a beer, sit down, order some food, watch football if I wanted to. Very few people would be wearing masks. Some would. Some would. That's their choice. That's their choice. The vast majority of businesses have remained open. There have been some minor modifications, but those modifications were made by the business themselves, not by the government forcing them to. This is why it works in Florida. It's a model for the rest of the country. So, anyway, I will leave it there. Happy Sunday to everyone. Join us on Twitch if you would like to talk more about this every night around 9:30 Eastern Time, 10 o'clock. I usually get online. I'll find a game to play so that there can be something going on in the background. But I am there discussing all sorts of topics like this with anyone who wants to come. I will leave a link down, first pinned comment, to not only that covenant, but Mayor Dailey, and it will be an amazing read. Trust me, it really will. God bless. Like, share, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.